Imagine a man promising to double your money in less than 3 months. Millions of people didn't just believe him. They begged him to take their savings, but behind the charm, the fancy offices, and the glamorous lifestyle, a colossal financial deception was quietly unfolding. One that would destroy thousands of lives and shake the world of finance to its core. This is the story of Charles Ponzi, the man whose name became synonymous with one of the most infamous scams in history. But here's the real question. Could someone like him exist today, hiding in plain sight, online, or even in cryptocurrency? Stick with me, because the truth is stranger than fiction. In just a few months, ordinary people went from hope to heartbreak. So what exactly did Ponzi do? Charles Ponzi was born in Italy on March 3rd, 1882. His family once thrived on wealth, but by the time Ponzi grew up, fortunes had faded. Bitter and frustrated, young Ponzi wondered, why should I struggle while my ancestors lived in luxury? As a teenager, Ponzi inherited a modest sum after his father's death. His mother wanted him to pursue a prestigious college education, but Ponzi had different plans. Instead of studying, he spent lavishly, fine clothes, luxury restaurants, theaters, and gambling, trying to live like the wealthy friends he envied. Soon, his inheritance ran out. With no diploma and no stable job, Ponzi faced a choice: start a 9-to-5 or chase wealth elsewhere. He chose America, the land of opportunity, or so he believed. Could ambition alone make him rich, or would it lead to disaster? Ponzi's early life reveals a key part of his psychology. He craved status and admiration, and anything less felt like failure. This hunger would later fuel his audacious scams. In 1903, Charles Ponzi arrived in Boston aboard the SS Vancouver. He was alone, penniless, and desperate to prove himself. But he quickly realized the American dream wasn't as easy as he had imagined. Ponzi jumped from job to job: sign painter, waiter, grocery clerk, factory hand, insurance salesman, even a sewing machine repairman. But most of these jobs ended the same way. Either Ponzi quit in frustration, or he tried to cheat the customers. Soon, poverty became part of his daily life. Some days, he begged for food, other nights he slept in public parks. But despite everything, Ponzi never lost sight of his dream: wealth, power, respect. But here's the question: could a man with no patience for hard work ever become a millionaire? Or would that impatience become his downfall? For a brief moment, Ponzi finally found some stability. He got a job at Banco Zarossi in Montreal, a small bank serving Italian immigrants. And it was here that Ponzi witnessed something fascinating: a dangerous financial trick known as robbing Peter to pay Paul, a strategy he would later perfect. After brushes with the law, forging checks, smuggling immigrants, Ponzi wandered from state to state, scraping by with odd jobs. He learned street-smart survival, while refining the ability to read people, spot weaknesses, and exploit trust. Eventually, he landed a stable clerk job at J.R. Pool Company in Boston. He also married his love, Rose. But his ambitions far exceeded his salary. He tried ventures in import-export and publishing, including a magazine called Trader's Guide. Both ventures failed spectacularly. But here's the question: was every failure the end? Or was it the spark for a new idea that would change Ponzi's life forever? It all started with a small letter from Spain. Inside was an international reply coupon, an IRC, a prepaid postal coupon, redeemable for stamps anywhere in the world. To Ponzi, it was more than just a coupon. It was a blueprint for his fortune. Ponzi studied arbitrage, the art of buying an asset cheaply in one market and selling it at a higher price in another. International reply coupons, or IRCs, seemed perfect. Buy them in Europe, redeem them in America for a slightly higher value, and repeat at scale. On paper, it seemed legal, clever, profitable, but reality was brutal. Shipping costs were high, the profit per coupon tiny, and the total number of IRCs in the world far too low. But here's the question. Could Ponzi convince the world to fund an impossible plan? The answer would shock everyone. When the legitimate arbitrage failed, Ponzi turned to what he did best: persuasion, deception. He promised investors 50% returns in 45 days, 100% in 90 days. He claimed a vast network of agents buying IRCs across the globe, and he carefully targeted the naive and the ambitious, those eager to get rich quickly. Within months, Ponzi's office was flooded with money, the streets outside crowded with hopeful investors. The Boston Post hailed him as a financial genius. Credibility soared and more clients kept coming. At its peak, Ponzi was making $250,000 a day, living in a mansion, driving luxury cars, wearing gold watches, but even the most dazzling empires built on lies are fragile. How long could Ponzi maintain the illusion? Suspicion started creeping in. Financial analysts noticed impossible numbers and asked questions. Ponzi sued for libel, trying to silence his critics. But the Boston Post soon sent Clarence Barron. Barron revealed the scam. Ponzi would have needed 160 million IRCs, but only 27,000 existed. The rise of Ponzi's empire was meteoric, but the higher he climbed, the harder he would fall. At first, the Boston Post celebrated him as a financial genius. Crowds of investors poured into his office daily, but behind the glittering fade, cracks were forming, small inconsistencies in the paperwork, questions about how returns were actually generated, whispers that this financial miracle might be too good to be true. And then came the danger. What the public didn't know was that Ponzi's empire was already built on sand. Just one sharp-eyed investigator could bring it all crashing down. Enter Clarence Barron, the powerful editor of the Wall Street Journal. Barron wasn't impressed by Ponzi's charm, mansion, or luxury cars. He looked at the numbers, and the numbers didn't lie. Barron calculated that Ponzi would have needed 160 million international reply coupons to pay investors the promised returns, yet only 27,000 existed in the entire world. The scale of Ponzi's deception was staggering. Barron began digging into the details, interviewing employees, checking financial records, scrutinizing Ponzi's letters to investors. Every layer of Ponzi's carefully constructed story started to unravel. Ponzi had painted himself as a meticulous businessman, but the truth was messy, sloppy, and impossible to sustain. And then, the question lingered. Could Ponzi manipulate even the press to maintain his illusion? The answer would shock everyone. At first, Ponzi tried cooperation and charm. He allowed some investigators into his offices, answered a few questions, even promised to stop taking new investments, temporarily. For a moment, it seemed like he could escape accountability. But then, he made a crucial mistake. He hired William McMasters, a publicist who was too honest for Ponzi's game. McMasters quickly realized that Ponzi's profits weren't real. He examined every record, every client letter, every investment report. What he found was a perfectly orchestrated illusion. Money from new investors was being used to pay older investors, creating the appearance of success. There were no genuine profits from arbitrage. None at all. Imagine thousands of lives depending on a system that existed only on paper, and the mastermind behind it laughing all the way to the bank. McMasters compiled a full dossier of evidence. He approached the Boston Post and published a detailed expose that would shock the nation. The headline was devastating. Ponzi, the man once hailed as a financial genius, was exposed as a fraud. The investigation didn't stop with the newspaper. State authorities, federal agents, financial regulators began looking into every corner of Ponzi's empire. Bank accounts were frozen, offices were raided, employees were questioned. Ponzi's lavish lifestyle, the mansion, the expensive cars, the gold watches, was documented as evidence of misappropriated funds. But the true horror was for the investors. Thousands of ordinary people, many of them immigrants with limited financial knowledge, discovered that their life savings were gone. Families lost homes, businesses collapsed, communities were shaken by betrayal. Ponzi's crime wasn't just financial, it was deeply personal for everyone involved. And still, Ponzi didn't seem worried. At least, not at first. How could a man face federal investigation, bankruptcy, and public outrage, and still think he could survive? Federal agents indicted Ponzi on 86 counts of mail fraud, a staggering number reflecting the full scope of his deceit. But through cunning legal maneuvering and public sympathy, Ponzi pleaded guilty to a single count. He received a mere 5-year sentence in federal prison, a fraction of the lives he had destroyed. While he sat in jail, investigators continued combing through the financial wreckage he left behind. Banks went bankrupt, investors filed lawsuits, and the ripple effects of Ponzi's fraud continued for years. The fall wasn't instant. It was a slow-motion collapse, demonstrating how a single fraudster could destabilize an entire financial ecosystem. From glamorous offices to federal prison, from admiration to infamy, Ponzi's empire collapsed under the weight of its own lies. And yet, even as the authorities closed in, Ponzi's obsession with wealth and status never died. A harsh lesson that greed often blinds even the smartest conman. By the end of the investigation, Ponzi's name had become synonymous with deception. His fall was complete. A broken empire, ruined lives, and a world that would never forget the audacity of his scam. Ponzi's story is more than a historical tale. It's a warning for every investor today. Greed is dangerous. Extraordinary returns often hide extraordinary risk. Human psychology matters. Trust, fear, hope are all easy to manipulate. Modern parallels exist. Cryptocurrency, online investments, crowdfunding scams often use the same principles. And now the chilling thought, could a new Ponzi be hiding right now, waiting for the next wave of desperate investors? The answer is frightening. If you thought Ponzi's story was shocking, wait until you hear the next financial scandal that shook the world. Hit subscribe now, turn on notifications.